So it was a perfect trip for two young pastors with little money and limited vacation. We had all the camping gear from our trips to the Smoky Mountains when we lived in seminary. We loved hiking in the mountains. Thanksgiving was coming up, so we actually had a couple of extra days off. And Big Bend was a doable drive. So we made our reservations at the campground in the national park there, planned our activities, packed the truck, and headed out. We got there well before dark, set up the tent and all the campsite, and settled in for the evening. Then it happened. One of those patented Texas-style 40-degree drops in temperature and the accompanying monsoon. It was a long, wet, cold, miserable night. For weeks now, I've been thinking about the planning for our message this morning, and I really plan to build it around this wall. A glorious day. It's reflective of who we are. It's finally finished. And I actually timed the Gospel According to Mr. Rogers series to coincide with this celebration. Because for me, what we've tried to create here at Journey of Faith is very much akin to that neighborhood Fred Rogers created on his show. A grace-filled place of acceptance where all are valued just the way you are, no matter what. Where each person in all their uniqueness is special and loved in their unique specialness. But you know, sometimes life gets in the way, does it not? And the plans we make, well, what's the saying? Life happens while we're making plans. This week happened. Not my life per se, although it was plenty busy, but our collective lives, our lives as a nation. On Monday, reports of explosive devices intercepted before they reached the prominent politicians and well-known political activists to whom they were mailed. On Wednesday, kind of buried in all the hubbub over the explosive devices, a story out of Kentucky. A tragic incident in which a black man and a black woman were executed, gunned down shopping for groceries at their local Kroger's, ostensibly because of the color of their skin. Reports say the gunman passed over a white shopper on his way to shoot the second victim, muttering something like "whites don't kill whites," before killing that woman. Reports indicate he'd gone to the grocery store to kill because he'd been to the nearby black church and found the doors locked. And Yesterday, as a number of us worked on a house in East Austin with other people from the greater Austin area, some who were Christian, some who were Muslim, some who were volunteering through the Center for Dialogue in Cedar Park. As we worked together, a gunman entered the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, killing 11 and wounding 6, yelling Jews must die. Common thread in these seemingly separate acts of violence were perpetrators fueled by hatred of the other. They all expressed anti-Semitic, white supremacist views. They were scared of people different from them, and they hated them and wanted to kill them. As a pastor, how could I ignore these atrocities, these acts of extreme violence? I didn't want to address that this morning. This is supposed to be a happy day, right? It's my job, is it not, to acknowledge and to address the brokenness in which our world finds itself. It's sad. It's heartbreaking that our nation is so divided that civil discourse no longer even seems possible. That we can't agree to disagree, that we can't just acknowledge our differences without demonizing those who think or love or worship or vote differently than we do. No, it's not what I wanted to talk about today at all. Yet here we are. We do live in a broken world, even on the most uneventful day. But somehow it all kind of comes together. It's not totally off topic. Because what we celebrate today is a community, a family of faith, where differences are not just tolerated, but lovingly affirmed, where we don't just agree to disagree, but we agree to love each other no matter what. And folks, that's good news in this world. That's cause for hope. That is a reason to celebrate. 1 John 4, we find these words, God is love, and those who remain in love remain in God, and God remains in them. This is how love has been perfected in us, so that we can have confidence on the judgment day, because we are exactly the same as God is in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. Because fear expects punishment. The person who is afraid has not been made perfect in love. We love because God first loved us. If anyone says, I love God, and hates a brother or sister, he is a liar. Because the person who doesn't love a brother or sister who can be seen cannot love God who can't be seen. This commandment we have from Him. Those who claim to love God ought to love their brother and sister also. Amen?
Amen.
Perfect love drives out fear. I refuse to worship in fear with armed guards at the door, because perfect love drives out fear. We are not perfect, no. None of us are perfect. We are like this wall. We are not perfect, but as spiritual descendants of John Wesley, we do believe that we are moving on toward perfection, being made perfect in love of God and neighbor. John Wesley believed this should be the goal of every Christian's journey, every Christian's life, being made perfect, transformed into the image of Jesus the Christ. Perfect love drives out. That ill-fated camping trip I mentioned earlier, that's why. It was different than we had envisioned, but it turned out okay after all. It wasn't anything like we planned. That next morning we got up wet and cold. We packed up our camping gear. We found a cheap motel nearby, one of those flea-ridden ones, I'm sure. The weather cleared up enough that we could hike in the Davis Mountains. We took a leaky rowboat across the Rio Grande at Bogus and experienced a Mexican town that didn't have all the things we take for granted. We spent evenings at the camp store /restaurant /honky tonk in Terlingua, and got to know some of the local folks there. All in all, the trip probably turned out better than if it had gone according to the way we planned. It was a wonderful time. Life doesn't always work out the way we plan, does it? But as resurrection people, as people of hope, as people who look for the silver lining, the rainbow after the storm, the hope we have in Jesus, and the transformation of the world He calls us to be a part of, to work for, we do have a future that is filled with hope. Isn't that what we're about here at Journey of Faith? Last night I watched that sad UT Oklahoma State football game. Scratching my head, but not totally surprised at their demise. And one of the things the announcers didn't say enough, in my opinion, because I would be a better announcer than they are, is that the actions of two very selfish young men, I believe it was Davis and Chris Boyd, the starting cornerbacks, defensive backs, because they couldn't be bothered to show up at meetings on time. They set out that first quarter, and I think that first quarter very much set the tone of that game. And they can answer to their teammates for that humiliating loss. But you know what? The team will survive, and hopefully they'll learn from this loss and improve. But that's really not where I was going with this. Just had to get that in there sometime. No, but I was thinking about this during the game. You know, they always play, when two teams play, college teams, they always play what you call, I guess, commercials, public service announcements for the universities that these teams represent. And one that I hear a lot because I watch these little Longhorns play a lot, it says UT, the University of Texas at Arlington. That's where I went to school. UT, the University of Texas at Austin, what starts here changes the world. Folks, that's an awesome tagline. And it would be one that we, the church, would do well to adopt. Shouldn't that be true of the church? What starts here changes the world. We live in a broken world, and it breaks my heart daily. But folks, we are people of hope, of resurrection, and we believe that if it starts here and spreads out, we can help transform the world into the world God envisions it to be, a place of love and acceptance and grace, where each child of God is cherished and valued and loved no matter what. Thanks be to God for doing everything. Amen.